Okay, this is chapter 11, engaging students in performance assessment and reflective learning. The learning outcomes will be describe the use of assessment in schools, examine the components and features of digital portfolios for teachers, analyze how democratic practices, learning portfolios, and online surveys promote student involvement in assessment and evaluation, and explore student participation systems as a learning assessment approach. The focus questions are: what is performance assessment for teachers and for students? How can teachers and students use digital portfolios as tools for learning? How can students become actively involved in assessment and evaluation using technology? And how can teachers use student participation systems as effective assessment systems? Well, I hope you know what assessments are. Uh, they're some type of test to measure how well somebody has learned, and there's different types of learned or performed. There's different types for new teachers. You have a supervisor assesses you, and how you assess yourself. You usually do some type of reflective thing. Student assessment, how you assess and evaluate your students, which is probably what we're most familiar with. And then student involvement in learning and assessment, how your students participate in the assessment process. And mainly, back in the day, students did not participate in the assessment process. They had a lecture, they took a test, and that was it. They didn't do any much more of anything else. They might write a paper or something like that, but very short. So students are involved more, and we'll see how through this chapter. Test assessments and performance evaluations. There are a wide variety of assessments, from tests to performance assessments. So tests and quizzes we know about. Performance are things we can do like make movies, do a demonstration, do a poster board, do a PowerPoint, whatever. So some type of performance. Performance evaluations used to assess students similar to those used to assess performance of new teachers. So that's a mouthful there. Performance evaluation used to assess students are similar to those used to assess performance of new teachers. So they're what what happens with a new teacher is supervisor comes in, sits in the room, and watches them teach a lesson. Generally, they are told when the supervisor is going to come. It's usually the principal, and then they get the students to be on their best behavior, and they teach the best lesson they know how. So it's kind of skewed. So that's not really true in terms of students, because students get messy, and you're going to assess them in various situations, not just this cookie cutter one that our new teachers do. But best assessments emphasize work done rather than tests taken. I believe that. We can all do well or poor on a test, but there's the performance equation in there, and that can speak volumes to learning. Student roles. Well, technology allows for students to participate in assessment through pre-assessment of interest and knowledge, through some type of pre-test, generally online, or a survey. If you should have taken the survey I gave you at the beginning of the semester. If you haven't done it, do it. It's in the how. I believe it's in the How Do I modules. Peer editing of writing assignments, where other students read other people's work and make comments. Self-assessments and reflections, that's the big one. Reflective data is a very good indicator of learning. So having students reflect on what they've done is very positive. You have to document the learning and participation in grading. Students don't have a lot of participation in grading, but but educators are trying to get that across. We'll talk about that in a second. Digital teaching portfolios. Well, those are usually something that teachers do. It's a collection of sorry about that. An electronic format. Exists as both personal and public collection of writing work. Commonly, the things that are in there are resume, philosophy of education, lesson plans or unit plans, and the resume shows personal talents and accomplishments. Philosophy of education usually has some reference to the philosophy, and remember, philosophies can be anything from constructivism to constructionism, those types of things. Lesson plans or units are usually a reflection on how they did. Academic courses and research experience, those can be videos or pictorial segments. Teaching experience, it can show links to work done, photos, all those types of things. And the use of standards-based digital portfolios also grown. So we connect skills to specific standards, and we know what standards are through our lesson plan. Portfolios and reflection. Portfolios are used to reflect upon change in one's own teaching. Portfolio is constantly changing as one's teaching practices change. So it's not like you make a portfolio and you're done. You're always updating it, changing it, putting new things in, doing great things that you've done. So it's not just a one-time thing. Portfolios and performance evaluation. Performance-based evaluations ask questions such as, did you structure your lessons to incorporate rigorous academic content and engaging teaching methods? Questions you should ask yourself. Did you elicit questions and converse fairly consistently with both boys and girls? So there's a gender issue there. Does your language convey high expectation of success for every child? That's what we talked about with differentiated instruction. Are you teaching for every child? Are you trying to get success for every child? And again, do you differentiate your teaching to meet the individual learners? Did you conduct discussions well, manage class time effectively, redirect students' attention back to academic activities if they are distracted? Again, in the lesson plan, there's the point of what happens when students get off task. What do you do? How do you get them back? So you have to ask these things when you're doing a performance of your evaluation. Involving students in learning and assessment. Students typically have little voice or influence in the curriculum. That's true. Particularly nowadays with all the standards and all the accountability going on. Students have very little voice in it unless it's some type of elective. Individuals are more likely to remain invested in activities they have a role in creating. That's where this thing called partnering pedagogy comes in. A guy by the name of Mark Prensky. And what Prensky's saying is students are digital natives. They know what they're doing on the computer. They know about everything, computers, phones, all this stuff, and they want instant feedback, instant gratification. So partnering pedagogy talks about that, and it relates to constructivism, where we try to draw out students' prior knowledge to build, and so we ask the question, the students ask the questions, am I learning? Are my skills getting better? What should I be working on? Generally, in a face-to-face classroom, students aren't asking that, but with partnering pedagogy type situations, they will. Democratic schools and classrooms. Well, that's kind of funny because Um, most classrooms are anything but democratic simply because the teacher has to maintain order. However, in a perfect world where all the students are just great and no one causes trouble, um, you can have students and teachers make decisions together. Um, and this is kind of out there for me because it's just this relies too much on all students being um, just you know wonderful students, and we know that a lot of students are, but there's a significant amount that aren't, that are going to cause trouble. So democratic schools and classrooms is really kind of a pie in the sky for me, but you can read about it in your book. I want to ask a question on the quiz. Digital portfolios for students, however, is a good thing. E-portfolios offer more flexible public sample of students' work than paper. The advantages are it's accessible and portable. You can do things new. You can update it constantly. You can get very creative. Students get very creative. Um, the increase builds tech skills and confidence, and it offers connections over wider communities, not just in the school, but socially as well. The disadvantages, requires tech mastery, but most students have that, which requires class time to acquire. Well, they need to acquire that, so I don't see that as a disadvantage. You may need support on building the portfolio. Don't see that as an advantage. See that as a learning opportunity. Students may be disappointed if readers don't offer feedback. That's true, but and I guess that could be a disadvantage. Um, One of the disadvantages are those students will fixate on fashioning it and making it all fluff with all sizzle and no steak, as they say, rather than adding substance. So that is a disadvantage. But you, as a good teacher, will rectify that. Online surveys for pre-assessment. Well, we have pre-tests and post-tests. We have a pre-test to see what the student already knows, and then a post-test to see what they've learned. So surveys do that, and we also do pre-assessment strategies, what I just said here. So that's a good way for you as a teacher to understand what your students know and work on it. Work on that with them. Using student participation systems. These are these clickers, and I'm sure you're all familiar with them. So they promote active learning, student involvement. The big thing is real-time feedback, and it's question-driven instruction. So you can see in the graphic there, a sample display of student responses in real time, and it can be very effective. They change the classroom experience if you have them. There's things called Promethean boards that are out there. You may have seen them. If not, you can look it up, Promethean boards. You can do surveys, you can do quizzes, you can do all kinds of things with these new things, and they're very, very sophisticated now, and they're getting much better. Back even 5 years ago, they were very clunky and didn't work well. Preparing for high-stake tests, technology can help that as well. Teachers put questions and practice tests online. You can do content reviews. You can do skill practices. You can have online discussions, all through technology to prepare for tests. And then the misconceptions that are out there: teachers use student participation systems to reveal and clarify student misconceptions. We don't do that. We see the misconceptions and then we act upon them. We don't use them to ambush or anything like that. And anonymity avoids student embarrassment over mistakes. Well, um, when you have anonymity with your students, or they are anonymous in what they're doing, um, they can still be embarrassed, and but generally they aren't. So that's it for this chapter. I'll see you next time.